All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Replacement Level Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Phillips. I'm again flying solo as Rafal is still on his vacation. Hope he's enjoying it. We miss you, buddy. Can't wait to have you back. He's supposed to be back next week, so you can expect the next time you see me or listen to this show that I'll be accompanied by the much more talented Rafal Negnowinski here. But for today, it's going to just be me taking you on this wonderful ride here. We're going to be looking at a lot of stuff coming in the second half of Major League Baseball. I mean, we just got done with the All-Star break. We got done with all of the All-Star festivities in the Pacific Northwest up in Seattle, hosting with the Seattle Mariners there. Julio Rodriguez, my prediction for the Home Run Derby fell just a little bit short of making that come to fruition, but he did set a record with 41 home runs in the first round, which was amazing. There is a lot of discussion about the format for the Home Run Derby, but that's something we can talk about probably at another time. But for today, we're going to look at the MVP race for both the AL and NL. We're going to look at the rookie race, the Cy Young race, kind of get maybe a little bit of a glimpse of what could happen at the MLB trade deadline, as we're not too far away from that. We're also going to look at current MLB standings and then also the wild card standings. So there's a lot to look forward to as the second half of the Major League Baseball season is just about to start. Again, action begins tomorrow. So for all you baseball fans out there that have been missing the game, it comes back tomorrow. So looking forward to that. And some of the teams that were ending the first half on a positive note, we'll see if they can pick that up in the second half. And teams that were struggling, well, we'll see what they can do. So let's get into it. First off, we're going to start with the MVP race, because who doesn't like talking about MVPs? And we're going to start over in the AL, because at this point, I would say it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Shohei Ohtani is going to win the award again for the second time in 3 years. There's really not somebody else in the AL that you can think of that has a case to be made that can top what Shohei has done this year. It is interesting to see that as of right now, Aaron Judge is kind of in second place, considering he's been hurt a lot. But at the same time, you look at what the Yankees done with him in and out of the lineup, and there is a vast difference to what the Yankees are. So, that comes back down to it's called most valuable player, and Aaron Judge is clearly the most valuable player to the New York Yankees. They are a completely different team with him in the lineup than they are without him. And there's always that debate about players who are injured and how teams perform, like how much weight do you give that guy versus a guy who's healthy and continuing to produce. So that'll be a fun topic for those. But I mean, really, it's Shohei Ohtani by a long shot. There's a lot. There's a lot that he's just done in this first half, and it's incredible, the season that he's having. I mean, it's like the best season in baseball we've seen from a single player, and that is topping what Babe Ruth did back in the early 1900s and stuff. So it's Shohei all the way in the AL. For those out there that are going to say it's too early to call it a slam dunk, case closed, sure, you can make a case. There's still, roughly 70 games left in the second half, and anything can happen. But I just don't see anybody making up the ground to legitimately say, yeah, this dude deserves the AL MVP over Shohei. So now, when we move over to the NL, that's where it gets a little bit more interesting. Right now, it's going to be Ronald Acuna Jr., who is having a fantastic season. I think he's the only player to have hit 20 plus home runs and stolen 40 bases in the first half of the season. So yeah, I mean, that's a great, for a full year stat line there, 20 plus home runs and 40 stolen bases. You'd take that any day, but he did that in just the first half. And there's, like I said, there's roughly 70 games left to be played. So I can only imagine what kind of numbers he's going to finish up with for them, or for himself and everything like that. But, you look at guys that are also competing against him for that. You've got Freddie Freeman of the Dodgers. You've got Corbin Carroll of the Diamondbacks. And, of course, Luis Ariz of the Marlins. And then Mookie Betts of the Dodgers as well. I do think that Betts and Freeman are going to kind of pull some votes away from each other, and I think that Arise and Carroll have a much better shot at taking the award away from Acuna. Arise, if he continues to hit close to 400, I think that's really going to stick with a lot of Major League Baseball writers who are a little bit older, who, still like kind of the small ball type of a game compared to this home run or nothing type that we see nowadays. But again, still what Arise has been able to do is incredible. I'm personally rooting for him to hit 400. I don't think there's ever been a guy that hit 400 in my lifetime. I know Ted Williams, I think, was the last one, and I'm definitely not that old or anything like that. But I don't even think there's been players in the past that I can remember that have hit 400. Over the course of like what he's done, everything like that. So I'm rooting for him. I don't know if he'll be able to just go win the award based off his batting average. Corbin Carroll, though, is a totally different story. I mean, this dude, you could say, is the whole reason why the Diamondbacks are leading the NL West. I mean, the guy is a rookie, and he is having a fantastic season. It's just he could potentially be one of the very few players to win the MVP and Rookie of the Year as well. I mean, that doesn't happen quite often, but I mean, he definitely could. He's on pace to be the second player, joining Mike Trout as a player to hit 30 plus home runs and 40 stolen bases in their rookie year. So that is incredible. And like I said, he's really a big reason as to why the Diamondbacks are where they are. He's just been phenomenal. The only thing you have to really worry about him is his shoulders. Right before the All-Star break, he kind of re-injured his shoulder that really impacted him last season, and I thought that they might just shut him down with the All-Star break coming up and give him extra time to rest, but he ended up only, I think, missing a handful of innings and was back out the next day. So hopefully the time off and not too much wear and tear in the All-Star game can kind of keep that shoulder healthy, and he can be ready to roll for the second half, because he's a very electric player. A lot of fun to watch. He's a lefty. He's got power, clearly, and he's got stolen bases, and he hits near the top of that order for the Diamondbacks. And as I said, big reason why they are having the success that they are, which we all know are our fan and beloved creator of the shirts that we have, that, feel free to get your own. LJ Parker out there is going to be loving the fact that his Diamondbacks are in first place, and Corbin Carroll is a big reason as to why. And since we're talking about Corbin Carroll, we'll just go right over and talk about the MLB Rookie of the Year odds. And, we'll stick with Carroll. Right now, he's the odds-on favorite for all you gamblers out there. According to Caesars Sportsbook, he's minus 300 to win the NL Rookie of the Year. Now, he does have a lot of competition for him, and there is Matt McClain of the Cincinnati Reds, who's plus 4,000, and then of course there is the electrifying, and as one broadcaster said in the Brewers Reds game, I believe it was a Reds broadcaster, said Ellie De La Cruz is the most electrifying player in baseball, and I can't argue with them. I mean, for those of you who didn't hear about it, didn't see it, haven't read about it, somehow missed it, one of the last games before the All-Star break, Ellie De La Cruz stole 3 bases in 2 pitches. Yeah. So he stole second base, then he stole third, and right after he stole third, he was watching the pitcher, and the pitcher essentially turned his back and totally forgot or totally ignored or just didn't believe that De La Cruz would have the guts to steal home. And De La Cruz said, "I'm going to do it," and he did it. And yeah, that was incredible. If you haven't seen it, find it. It's incredible to watch. He's also already hit for the cycle as a rookie too. So FanDuel has him at plus 280 to win the Rookie of the Year, and I would say he's got the best odds to unseat Corbin Carroll. I would be a little disappointed if De La Cruz won the award over Carroll, simply because Carroll's been up all year and been productive and been amazing, where De La Cruz got a a later call up than Carroll. And while De La Cruz has been exciting and been a big reason to why the Reds have turned things around, I just don't think it's necessarily fair to discount what Carroll did prior to De La Cruz's call up, and now you have De La Cruz kind of riding the wave of what he's done. So, call me the old man yelling at clouds in this situation, but for me, I'm going with Carroll as the Rookie of the Year for the NL. Unless something drastic happens, here in the second half. But for me, it's Carroll winning the NL Rookie of the Year. Over in the AL side, it's really not that close necessarily. I mean, you've got, according to FanDuel, Masataka Yoshida at plus 290. BetMGM has Gunnar Henderson at 300. Henderson has definitely had a bad rookie year, and you could potentially make the case that he's maybe due to get sent down and kind of maybe get some confidence and stuff, or maybe he looks like he's a little bit overmatched at the MLB, but it's not what Oriole fans were hoping for with Gunnar and what they're expecting from him when he made the team this year and everything like that. But again, he is a rookie. Give him time. He's been able to play a very good defense. He's helped them win games, and ultimately that's really what matters to the team and to the and the players. Winning the awards are nice, and guys want to get those awards, but at the same time, like, you want the team success. I'm pretty sure every professional athlete out there would trade any individual award to get a championship ring. Just because those are much more difficult to get. So, but FanDuel has Josh Jung at plus 135 as their guy to win the AL Rookie of the Year, and I gotta say, I think he is. I can't see another AL rookie out there that should take that award away from Jung. I mean, he has been huge for the Texas Rangers. There was a lot of talk with him about how he's got a lot of swing and miss, kind of something like Joey Gallo has, and definitely had when he was in Texas. But it hasn't really impacted Jung. He's been able to be productive at the plate, and he's hit a lot of home runs. And I would say he's really helped that infield defense for the Rangers. I mean, now you've got Jung at third, Corey Seager at short, Marcus Semien at first, and then Marcus Semien at second, Nathaniel Lowe at first. And that's not a terrible infield, especially on the left-hand side, especially with Semien at second there. So, he's been a big reason why the Rangers have had the success that they had this year. Their pitching has also been a big boost to them as well. We'll see if the Rangers can keep it up for the second half. There's not necessarily anything looking for the Rangers that you could say like, oh, they're over their skis or anything like that. They seem like they might be legit, but second half of the season, we've seen epic collapses, epic runs, and we'll see what we have in store there, not just in the standings, but also in these races as well. Finally, we're going to move over to the Cy Young, and this should be a lot of fun because, in my opinion, there's not a clear-cut, front runner for either side. Like, you have a lot of guys that you can make a very strong and very legitimate case for them to be the respective AL or NL Cy Young Award winner. Right now, according to ESPN's Cy Young predictor, they've got their top five as Zach Eflin at number 5, Jordan Romano, number 4, Nathan Eovaldi at number 3, Felix Bautista at number 2, and then Shane McClanahan at number 1. The other guys you have in the top 10 are Garrett Cole, Dane Dunning, Emmanuel Clase, Carlos Estevez, and Joe Ryan. All those guys, I think, are deserving of it. I think you can make a very strong case for each one of those guys to be the award winner. It's going to be interesting how the closers specifically stack up against starters, because I wouldn't say any of them are having a dominant season. And when I'm talking dominant season, I'm talking back to the Eric Gagne years or to the Mariano Rivera seasons, or, when the guys are just lights out and they're locking it down and there's not anything the other team's really going to be able to do unless those closers just happen to make a mistake pitch or somehow don't get the ball to move the way they wanted to or anything like that. I don't believe any of those closers are on a record pace or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see how they can kind of fare as this second half goes along. You know, I have a little bit of a bias for Joe Ryan because he's on my fantasy team, so I'm definitely going to be saying he should be the number one guy. But he's got some ground to make up. He's right before the end of the first half. He was kind of oscillating between really good starts and really bad starts. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of a coincidence considering his really good starts were coming against really bad teams and his really bad starts were coming against really good teams. So we'll see if that's maybe just like a fluky thing or something that happened in the season, like bad timing, bad luck, or maybe he's just getting a little tired. And so this all-star break was enough to like rejuvenate him and kind of refresh him. But for me, I'd like to see Joe Ryan of the Twins be the guy to win it. He was a former Tampa Bay prospect that was sent over. I forget what the package was, who the Rays got in return. But I'd like to see Ryan get it. He's had a great year. But Shane McClanahan has been phenomenal for the Tampa Bay Rays, and considering they've lost a few pitchers before the season started that were, or before the season started or early on, that were expected to be big assets for the Tampa Bay Rays, and he's been very, very good. I can't fault him. He's got an 11-1 record with a 2.53 ERA. The dude is legit. Over in the NL right now, again, according to ESPN's Cy Young predictor, their top five are going to be Camilo Doval at number 5, Clayton Kershaw at number 4, Spencer Strider at 3, Zach Gallen at 2, and Alexis Diaz at number 1. So the Reds closer is currently the front runner there. And same thing, like I said, with the AL closers. I don't necessarily see these guys sticking around in there. I expect them to kind of fall on the wayside and everything like that. Rounding out the top 10 is Devin Williams, Merrill Kelly, Justice Steele, Bryce Elder, and Charlie Morton. So, Duvall, Williams, and Alexis Diaz, like I said, I expect them to slide down the Cy Young winner awards. I'm a little bit surprised that Zach Gallen is number 2 and not number 1. I mean, he's logged 118 in 18.1 innings. He's got 125 strikeouts. He's 11-3, a 3.04 ERA. He's been arguably the best NL pitcher this year. He's having a better season than he did last year, and last year was a great season for him. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he slides up and becomes the front runner. I do think Spencer Strider is going to have a case and have a strong case at that, as well as the second half continues, as he's the league leader in strikeouts. That's impressive in its own right. And then Clayton Kershaw, is kind of Mr. Reliable for the Dodgers this season. Their rotation hasn't quite been what's been in years past, but he's looking like he's been able to turn back the clock and been highly effective and been the Clayton Kershaw of old. Could he add another Cy Young to his record books before he retires? It's possible, man. It really is possible. I mean, he's not too far behind the other two guys I'd mentioned, and considering if the Dodgers keep winning, and if the Dodgers take first place from the Diamondbacks, maybe that's, another feather in his cap to boost him over and have him win, the Cy Young for the NL. But the Cy Young for both sides is going to be a fantastic race to watch. Keep an eye on those. We kind of talked about it. The AL MVPs pretty much over. It's Shohei's award to lose. NL, I think Acuna is going to do it, but he will have stiff competition on that NL side, again, from Corbin Carroll and Luis Arraez. For Rookie of the Year recap, Josh Young, I think he's going to win it. I can't think of another AL rookie, or even look at the roster to see another AL rookie that I think will take that award from him. NL is going to be a fantastic and very fun race to watch. Again, Corbin Carroll is kind of the front runner there, with Elly De La Cruz gaining on him. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if Major League Baseball has taking this time to maybe figure out some holes in De La Cruz's swing, and we'll see if he can continue the success that he was on prior to the All-Star break or not. But those are going to be fun to watch as the season goes on. And as we're watching the season goes on, we're going to take a brief minute and just kind of recap the standings that we have right now. So in the AL East, we have the Tampa Bay Rays sitting at first. They're 2 games ahead of the Baltimore Orioles in second place. Rafal's New York Yankees are 8 games back. They are 7 games over 500, so good for them. and they got a lot of work to do, really. AL Central. Real quick, the AL East is still the only division that has every team over 500. Boston Red Sox are 5 games over 500 at 48 and 43, and they are in last place at 9 games back. Tampa Bay has kind of slowed their pace a little bit, but they're still in first, and they're looking very, very strong. AL Central, it is still arguably the worst division in baseball. The Cleveland Guardians are in first place with a 500 record at 45 and 45. The Minnesota Twins are 1 game under 500 at 45 and 46, and they sit a half game back in second place. And then, maybe surprisingly, the Detroit Tigers are in third, only 5.5 games back. So there's enough time that they could close that gap and win the division. It would be shocking if they did, as I see both the Guardians and the Twins having better lineups, better rosters. But that doesn't matter when you go out and you play the games and you score more runs than your opponent does, and that's just the way it goes. So, we'll see what happens to the AL Central. They're most likely only going to be getting one team in the playoff, and thank God, because I don't really want to see any of these other teams in there because they're not great. Sorry. Moving over to the AL West, the Texas Rangers are in first place at 52 and 39. They have a 2-game lead over Houston Astros, who are in second at 50 and 41. Third place are my Seattle Mariners, your most recent host of the All-Star festivities. They're at 45 and 41. They were able to climb over 500. They sit 6 games back in the AL West. They've not been very good, so if we're talking about bad baseball and not fun teams to watch, you can lump the Seattle Mariners in that group because they have not been enjoyable. They've been highly disappointing and very frustrating to their fan base. And I'll get off my fanboy soapbox there, and we'll get back to talking about regular baseball here. But the AL West, like I said, the Rangers, they're looking pretty legit. They're 27-18 on the at home. They're 25-21 on the road. So, it's not a situation where they're better on one side or the other or anything like that. They're taking care of business where they need to be doing so. And quite honestly, like I said, the Mariners are not playing great. They've got a really great pitching staff, which a lot of clubs would love to have. Their offense has been very awful, not good, inconsistent, bad. Fill in any negative adjective you want, and that would describe the Seattle Mariners offense. Meanwhile, the Houston Astros, they're lacking a lot of star power that we've seen from them in years past, and maybe it's showing. Their rotation has been kind of hit hard. Lance McCullers is now out for the year. Framber Valdez is looking great, but the rest of the rotation, it's good, it's solid, but I think they're a little bit over their skis in what they've been able to do. Their offense is much better than the Mariners, but even still, they've not been what we've seen in the past. So the Rangers could really pull away if they can get us off to a strong start in this second half. And if the Mariners are able to get hot and keep up their winning record, they finished the last 10 games with a 7-3 record. If they can keep that going and expand on it, they could close some ground and maybe shockingly win the division. But I'm not holding that hope on that. I'm sorry. I don't see the Mariners making the playoffs or winning the AL West. But there are a lot of good races out there to be keeping eyes on, keeping tabs on, seeing what's going on, because no division is really too far gone on the AL side. I mean, your top 3 teams in most of the divisions are really within striking distance. Looking at the AL West, the LA Angels are 1 game under 500, and they're 7 games back. So they could still make a run. And they've got Shohei Ohtani, who is literally doing everything he can to help the ball club win. And maybe he's got to do a little bit more to help the ball club win if they want to make it to the playoffs at any time that he's been on their roster. Moving over to the NL, we're going to start in the NL East. The Atlanta Braves, who are maybe the closest thing to being the team to beat this year. They're 60-29. They've got the best record in baseball. They have an 8.5 game lead in their division. The Miami Marlins are second with a 53-39 record. Then you've got the Phillies at 48-41, who are 12 games back. The New York Mets, who I think spent the most money in baseball this offseason, are in fourth, 42 and 48 in 18 and a half games back. So I guess it just shows you can't buy everything with money. But we'll see. They still have a lot of talent there. I wouldn't necessarily rule them out. There's just a lot of talent there that they can't continue to be this bad. But it also wouldn't be surprising considering they haven't really shown anything differently. So Atlanta Braves, again, they're looking like maybe the only team to lock up their division early with that 8.5 game lead. NL Central, by far the craziest division in baseball we've seen this season. First, we had the Pittsburgh Pirates being in first place. Then we had the Milwaukee Brewers. And now we've got the Cincinnati Reds in first place. All the while, the Cardinals have been the worst team in the NL Central, and they're still the worst team. They're 11.5 games back in their division. They are 38 and 52 on the year. Meanwhile, like I said, the Reds are in first with a 50 and 41 record. They have a 1-game lead over Milwaukee, who is 49 and 42. The Chicago Cubs kind of been middle of the pack almost all season. They're at 42 and 47 on the year. They're 7 games back in the NL Central. They could make a run and get back in and, be the division winner, be the division leader. Unfortunately, we've seen in the past with the Brewers, they tend to fall a little bit in the second half. So the fact that they're only 7 games over 500 and 1 game back of the Reds, they're still in it, but we've seen the Brewers in the past kind of fade in the second half. And if that happens again, that could be, that would be tumultuous for them and catastrophic, but, it would also kind of fit this NL Central being the craziest division in baseball. We'll see what happens. There's a lot to go on in this division. I think it's the most fun division to watch if you're not a fan of any team in that league, just because of the craziness that is happening in the NL Central. Meanwhile, out west, the NL West, the Dodgers and Diamondbacks are tied atop first place. The Dodgers are 51 and 38 on the year. Meanwhile, the Diamondbacks are 52 and 39 on the year. And then sitting in third place is your San Francisco Giants, 2.5 games back with a 49 and 41 record. Fourth place is your San Diego Padres, who are 4 games under 500 with a 43 and 47 record. Again, one of the teams that spent a lot of money this offseason. And just a reminder that just because you spend a lot of money in the offseason and you arguably won the offseason doesn't mean you're going to win the regular season. And that's just another example of this. Again, the Padres have a lot of talent there. I can't see them continuing to be as bad as they are, but again, they haven't shown us anything otherwise. So what's really to make us think differently other than the fact that we see the talent they have there, and that talent has been really good in the past. Now, with that being said, Manny Machado, who's been a huge disappointment in most of the first half, really started to come on in this last month, the month of June, and heading into the All-Star break. If he can continue this streak that he's on, this hot streak that he's on, that could be a big boost to the Padres offense and be a big reason why they make a run there. Dodgers, Diamondbacks, it's going to be fun to watch those two teams. Obviously, Dodgers been there, done that a lot. The Diamondbacks, not so much recently. But it's going to be a fun NL West race to watch. And like I said, with all this, the Braves are the only team really that's out there that I can say with real certainty that they're going to win their division, and it's not even close. It really isn't. But now the fun part, if you are not a division leader, is going to be the wild card standings. This year we've got 3 teams in the wild card hunt. Just recapping your division leaders for the AL, you've got Tampa Bay from the East, Cleveland from the Central, and Texas from the West. All 3 of those guys are your division leaders there, and they're a pretty strong team. Cleveland, maybe not so much, but they are winning baseball games, and that's really all that matters. They are the only division leader. I take that back. They're one of 2 division leaders that have a negative run differential. Cleveland is at -7 in the run differential. Cincinnati is the other division leader. They're -9. So it's a bit interesting to see that because your division leaders typically are teams that are great pitching, great offense, and these two teams are kind of different. Now, granted, run differential is very much skewed by scores, so it's not a stat that you can totally take for certain because you could win a lot of close one-run games, but in some games you just get blown out or shut out, and that skews your run differential. So like I said, not a lot to kind of hang your hat on there. But when we look at the wild card race for the AL, it's a fun one. It's gonna be a lot of just a lot to watch there. Baltimore is currently the number one wildcard team. They're 5 games up on Houston and Toronto, who round out the other 2 wildcard spots. They're both tied, same record, 50 and 41. And then right after that, only 1 game back is the New York Yankees. So you could conceivably have the entire wild card teams be represented by the AL East teams. It would not be too shocking to see that, considering how strong the AL East has been all season long. And again, when Judge comes back, he's going to make that Yankees team a completely different ball club. Their offense will go into another level. If their pitching can continue to be as good as it was in the first half, and you add in that offense, yeah, they're going to be a real tough team to beat. Boston, again, the worst team in the AL East, is only 2 games back of that 3rd wildcard spot. They are 48 and 43 on the year. So again, they could make it in as well. It would take just a nice hot streak to get in, and surprisingly, Boston could be that hot streak away from being in the wild card race. Finally, we're going to talk about the Seattle Mariners. They're only 4 games back in the AL wild card. They can be in it as well. Same with the Angels, and the Twins are also 5 games. Both of them are 5 games back. So that's really kind of your top guys. After that, you get to Detroit, who's 10 back, and they've got a better shot at winning their division. They do get in the wild card, and really with the AL Central, it's division or bust. If you're not winning the division, you're not getting in the playoffs. It's just that simple. Really, the Twins. 5 games back, not a lot. They could overcome it in the second half, but again, they've just been not great to see all season long. And really, every team in the AL Central has not been great all season long. So that's part of the reason why I say for the AL Central, it is division or bust. But, looking at some other teams like the Angels, the Mariners, the Red Sox, the Yankees, they've all shown some glimpses, some small flashes that they can be a team that can put it together and do it at the right time. All the teams that I mentioned that are legitimately, going down to Minnesota, they all have a plus run differential. Again, it doesn't mean necessarily a lot because it's all about the runs you score in your games versus how many you don't score. So it's just typically you see teams that have positive run differentials are winning teams, and all these teams in here, for the most part, are 500 or better. Your Angels and your Twins are both a game under 500, so they're right there. But yeah, the AL wildcard race, it's going to be interesting to watch. I'm slightly rooting for all the wildcard teams to be from the AL East. I think that would be pretty cool to see. I don't really care if it's Boston or New York who makes it in there, but it would be really cool to see the AL wild card race come down to basically just the AL East division standings, because they've been arguably the best division in baseball. NL division leaders again are your Atlanta Braves, your of the East, your LA Dodgers of the West, and your Cincinnati Reds of the Central. Like I said, the Reds are the only NL division leader who's got a negative run differential. For your wildcard teams, you've got in the top spot the Miami Marlins, who are 3 games up. They have a -5 run differential. And then Arizona Diamondbacks are in second place in the wildcard standings at +2.5 games, followed by your San Francisco Giants, who are currently in the 3rd wildcard slot. So again, looking at the NL the NL wildcard race. You could have the NL West representing most of the teams in the playoffs, which would be cool. It wouldn't necessarily be as cool as the AL East doing it, just because the AL East would have four teams in. So basically, their entire division in, where the NL West would have three out of their five. But still, be fun to see all the same. Right outside and right behind San Francisco Giants are the Philadelphia Phillies. They're a half game back of them, and there's a lot of talk coming out of this All-Star break and heading into the second half of the season about how the Phillies have finished up the first half of the year strong. Their last 10 games, they're 6-4. Their offense started clicking. Their pitching was being better, and there is the expectation that the Phillies are going to be buyers at the trade deadline and make some adjustments, make some moves to bolster their roster and help them get back into the playoffs, and make another run at a World Series. If that's to be true and to believe, then yeah, that half game is probably going to be overcome quickly, and it wouldn't be shocking to see the Giants and the Phillies kind of fighting for that last spot and looking every day, and one of them's in, the other one's out, and then it flips the next day. So it'll be fun. Right behind Philly, also a half game back, is the Milwaukee Brewers. Again, we talked about with the NL Central being the craziest division. The Brewers, they are one of a few team, they've got a minus 13 run differential. They have arguably, like, of the teams that are legitimately in the wild card race, the worst run differential. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. It is just an interesting stat to look at and to see, considering teams that are successful, teams that win, are teams that have a positive run differential, and the Milwaukee Brewers do not. So if they're going to get in, they're really going to need to right that ship and start scoring more runs, scoring a lot of them. It'll also be interesting to see, as the trade deadline gets closer, what they decide to do. They've got some intriguing players on their roster, Corbin Burns, that could be a big addition to other teams going for playoff pushes. And considering Corbin Burns has not signed any sort of extension and has no intention of doing so, could the Brewers decide, if things aren't going their way, they decide, you know what, we're going to trade him and get something for him. I know when we had Jack on, I think he was saying that's probably not going to be the case, but we'll see. It's been a while since we had him on here, and it's been been some time since the Brewers were kind of legitimately winning their division and looking at the playoffs and everything like that. So we'll see what happens. Things can get crazy come trade deadline. GMs make some good moves. GM make some ridiculous moves. Looking at you, AJ Preller, when you decided to move Andres Munoz, Ty France, to the Seattle Mariners for a backup catcher in Austin Nola, and that hasn't really worked out for the Padres. But for the Mariners, we very much are appreciative and thankful for that deal. But right behind the Milwaukee Brewers is the San Diego Padres. They're 6 games back. After that is the Cubs at 6.5. The Mets 7 games back, and then your Pittsburgh Pirates at only 8 games back. Now, it is interesting with the Pirates, as it's been reported the Pirates are expected to be sellers at the trade deadline, which, again, their team that started off the year hot were winning the NL Central. They're 8 games back of the third wildcard spot. 8 games isn't necessarily a lot, considering there's so much baseball left to be played. Again, we're looking at roughly 70 games. They could do it, but they're going to have to really show something here in the next 2 weeks, because the trade deadline is August 1st. So we're roughly, 18 days away from the MLB trade deadline. And so if the Pirates are, the players specifically, if they're going to show their management that, hey, we can win, give us a little bit of help, give us a little bit of boost, give us some more pitching, maybe a little bit more offense too, we can get it done. They're really going to have to show something coming out of coming into the second half here, and they're going to have to do it quickly because they don't have a lot of time. If they continue to do what they've been doing, as how they ended the first half of the season, going 3-7 over their last 10 games, then yeah, you can fully expect the Pirates to be sellers. Now the question is, who is on the market for them? There's been some rumblings about maybe Andrew McCutchen. I don't think that's necessarily the greatest idea. I understand it is a business, and Andrew McCutchen could bring them a nice little return. But it was a big deal that he came back this offseason, and he's kind of the guy, the face of the franchise for the last like 20 years for the Pirates, or at least the last like 10. And you got him back, and now you're going to trade him. That's going to be really fun. I don't know if that's the right word. I don't want to use the word interesting because I've been using it a lot, but it really is something to keep an eye on because that fan base is sick and tired of losing. They're sick and tired of not making aggressive pushes to actually go and make a contender in there. And now you have like their prodigal son that you got him back, and it was a big boost to the season, and you're going to go ahead and trade him away. Woo. That could be something to keep an eye on in Pittsburgh as well. We're going to kind of shift over to looking at the trade deadline. Like I said, it is August 1st. We're roughly 18 days away. And when we're looking at potential teams that are going to be buyers and sellers, obviously, your division leaders are the Braves are expected to be buyers at the deadline. But the real question is, considering they're really strong, they've got a really good offense. They've got a really good starting rotation when healthy. And honestly, Kyle Wright and Max Fried are both expected to come back and be helpful for them in this second half. You add them into that rotation, that makes it just that much stronger. So the Braves don't necessarily need to go out and trade for starting pitching because they've got it on the roster already. They just got to get healthy and get them back. Then you look at their bullpen. Their bullpen is really strong. I mean, you've got a bunch of like former closers in that bullpen that they could turn to and, can get that mindset of, okay, game's on the line, get that out. So there is a bit of bad news, though. One of their big-time relievers, Nick Anderson, has just been put on the 60-day IL, so he's not going to be back till September. That could be something to keep an eye on because he's had a strong season, and he's a very strong bullpen guy. Gets a lot of strikeouts in his time when he comes in there. But we'll see. My guess is if the Braves are going to make some moves, it's going to be some smaller ones. Something maybe just a small bullpen addition here and there. Maybe they look to upgrade shortstop if they feel like what Orlando RC has done in the first half is a little bit of a fluke. On the flip side, though, they've got Vaughn Grissom in their minor leagues, that they could call up, and he could provide that offensive jolt from the shortstop position. Now, his defense may be a little suspect and could be problematic, but we'll see. The Braves don't necessarily be too aggressive when it comes to the trade line because they're in a really good spot. Now, you look at teams like Miami, they could go out and they could really need to make some moves in order to, if they want to gain some ground, especially when we're talking about wild card. Granted, they're the first wild card team and got a 3-game lead, but you look at some of the teams that are behind them, like the like the Diamondbacks, like the Giants, like the Phillies, like the Brewers, and the Padres. Those clubs have some either more star power or they've got big bankroll and they can go out and make some moves. So, if the Marlins are going to keep this winning up, they're going to have to make some moves as well. But the thing is, when you're looking at teams that are going to be sellers, they don't have a lot necessarily to offer, at least not something that is going to be a big boost to a contending team. I mean, just looking at the bottom 3 NL teams, you've got the St. Louis Cardinals, the Washington Nationals, and the Colorado Rockies. I don't know anybody in Washington that, we're hearing a lot of talk about, oh, this guy's going to be moved, and if he gets moved, these are the teams that he could move to, and if he goes there, he could really provide a big boost for them. Now, when we're talking about the Cardinals, obviously Nolan Arenado's name has kind of come up. Paul Goldschmidt's name has also kind of come up. Those are 2 guys that are that type of player, but outside of them, who else, really? And the thing is, like, if you move those guys, do you have somebody of their caliber waiting for them? Now, third base, I think they do. They could put Nolan Gorman back at third, or they could just give the position full-time to Jordan Walker. Both those guys have had pretty good first halves, so third base, I think you'd kind of be okay. First base is a little bit different. I know they had a kid that kind of got some time here and there in the first half. We'll see how they feel about it moving forward, but I think if you're talking about which player between Arenado and Goldschmidt is more replaceable, I would lean a little more towards Arenado being that, just because of the young depth that we've seen, young depth that they have there that's proven to be able to hit at the major league level. Maybe they're not Nolan Arenado in the glove, on the defensive side, but what they do offensively, I don't think will be a big drop off, and I don't think too many fans would be too disappointed in a little bit of a lesser defensive third baseman moving from Arenado to one of those guys. But Colorado, you've got Chris Bryant, you've got Charlie Blackmon, and I mean, does Colorado really want to go move Chris Bryant after they just kind of gave him a bunch of money to have him come to their team and kind of be a guy they want to build around? Charlie Blackmon, at this point, he's kind of a fourth outfielder or DH guy. How much is he going to be able to get you in return? Let's say he goes to a team like Seattle who could use a little bit of offensive help. Can he really be that missing piece that gets that offense more consistent and rolling? Maybe, I don't know. I'm not really buying it. So, it's things like that. And then, the bottom teams in the AL, you've got the Kansas City Royals, you've got the Oakland A's. There's nobody really there that you want on those rosters. Or at least those teams are going to be willing to trade. Like Bobby Witt would be a hot commodity, but I don't see the Royals giving up on him. Now, you look at a team like the Chicago White Sox, who's largely been rumored to be sellers at the deadline. It's talking about, I believe Buster Olney tweeted out today that Lucas Giolito is rumored to be a top priority of the LA Dodgers. That White Sox rotation is very strong. They do have a lot of arms there that could make big impacts for contending teams. But again, the White Sox are kind of the only team really that can offer that kind of firepower, because they may be looking to kind of reset their sites, reset their system and everything like that. So, you're looking at potentially just the White Sox and the Cardinals as kind of being the only two teams that can really offer some sort of punch to contending teams. You have other teams that are out there that could be in the case for making a wild card run if they get hot, but they could also be in the case for kind of shutting it down and looking to the future. We're talking about your New York Mets, your Chicago Cubs, your San Diego Padres. Again, your Milwaukee Brewers, maybe so. We'll see what happens here. But then also teams like the Seattle Mariners, Minnesota Twins, Boston, New York Yankees. But some of those teams, like the players that you can offer to the contending teams to provide that punch, are guys that those teams are kind of built around, or that they want to be a part of their core group that they're going to be building a contender around. So a guy, for example, like Luis Castillo, who's an all-star, the Mariners traded a big portion of their farm system to get him. He'd be a hot commodity for any team that's out there that would be wanting to get him. I just don't see the Seattle Mariners wanting to trade him, because they spent so much to get him and they value him. They also signed him to an extension too, by the way. So I don't see them wanting to move a guy like Castillo at this deadline. And like I said, he would be a big time player, but he's not going to be moved. Somebody like Robbie Ray, if he wasn't hurt, yeah, maybe, considering what we've seen with Bryce Miller and Brian Wu. But again, we wouldn't see those guys if Ray wasn't hurt too. But it's really going to be interesting to see what the teams do coming out of this All-Star break, because teams that are kind of close to making a wild card spot or winning the division, they've really got to get off to a hot start, because if they don't, the organization could look to be sellers at the deadline. So this third wild card team, we'll see how much of it impacts. Maybe it's just kind of a fluky season where you have kind of a lot of mediocrity. You don't have a lot of really strong teams, a lot of dominant teams. Like there's not, these are the winners, these are the losers kind of thing. Like you have, this guy's a winner and this guy's a loser, but there's not a lot separating the two of them here. So maybe it's just a weird year. But this trade deadline, I kind of don't think it's going to be too active or too crazy, just because, like I said, the teams that are bad that we're going to be clear sellers, they don't necessarily have a lot to offer the teams that are the winners and going to be going for it. So now, in saying that, does a team like Minnesota get together with Milwaukee and they kind of swap some players and kind of make both teams better? Yeah, I can see that happening too, but it's just, I don't know. Going to the mindset of the sellers are going to sell and the buyers are going to buy. I don't think you're going to see a lot of teams who are, quote, buyers or contenders trading with other buyers and contenders because they're both wanting the same thing. So this trade deadline could be a very quiet one, could be a very boring one, which would kind of be unfortunate considering the success and the positive that we've seen coming from the MLB this year with the bigger bases, the amount of times pitchers can throw over to those bases, and then also, the pitch clock in there as well too. So it'll be interesting to see. We've got a lot going on in this second half. Again, share with us your thoughts, your comments. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us everywhere you can follow the show. Really, we're talking about YouTube. We're talking about Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of those places. Tell your friends about us, share us with them, talk to people about us, interact with Rafal, interact with myself on Twitter. You can find me at C_Phillips_13. I can't think of Rafal's Twitter handle. I'm sorry, Rafal. I gotta get better at that. But find us on Twitter, chat with us. We love to talk baseball. We love to talk to you about really anything sports related, for that matter. But tell your friends, share us with everybody. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us comments. We will see you guys all next week. Again, like I said, Rafal is out, but he'll be back next week. So it'll be Rafal and myself doing the show for the first time, and it will be just a few days into the second half. So we'll see what we can uncover and what we can see from these teams that are really going to be needing and making a push for this upcoming season. But again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for following. Until next time.